The Supreme Court down one man and deciding not to decide, essentially. The 8 justices sent a high-profile case over Obamacare's birth control mandate back to the lower courts. The non-decision is being widely viewed as a win, though, for religious groups and a blow to the White House. An editorial in the National Review says this, quote, "Not the outcome the Obama administration had hoped for, and it's better than the 4-4 tie that most people predicted. A tie would have let stand rulings against the Little Sisters and most of the other religious organizations challenging the mandate. This outcome, by contrast, provides a judicial roadmap for a national victory for religious liberty." So that's why it's seen as a win. But let's talk about this. Let's make sense of all of this. And I'm joined this morning to do that with us by Sister Constance, who is Communications Director for the Little Sisters of the Poor, and Kristina Arriaga, who is the Executive Director of the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, which is the group that represented and represents the Little Sisters and is now 5-0, has won all 5 cases that they have brought against the Supreme Court and has an extraordinary record of fighting for religious liberty. But, Sister, let me start with you. What's your interpretation? What did this ruling mean for you and for the Little Sisters?
Well, for us, it meant that the Supreme Court acknowledged what we had been saying all along and what the government finally admitted in their supplemental brief, which is that there are other ways that the government can achieve its goal of providing these services without involving us. So by vacating or throwing out the decisions from the lower court, the Supreme Court is basically saying strongly that we should be able to work out a solution to this.
Yeah, one of the words that was used a lot about this, Kristina, was that they punted. They punted the decision back, and they didn't say that the lower court rulings would stand, which would have been negative outcome for the Little Sisters, but they said you need to work it out. You need to figure out a way that they don't need to pay for birth control, which is something that goes against their core beliefs. But is it a long-term win, do you think, Kristina?
Oh, absolutely. What the Supreme Court did was quite extraordinary. It issued a unanimous order telling the government a number of things. First of all, it told the government it could not fine the Little Sisters. As you know, for the last 4 years, the government has been threatening the Little Sisters with $70 million in fines per year. It also told the government that it had to work it out. It allowed the government to sort of fulfill its word. I mean, the government told the Supreme Court that there were other ways in which it could do this. And it also told the government to take its time and do this right. This is a big win for Little Sisters, but it's also a big win for all Americans who want to live according to their deeply held convictions. The government gets to meet its goal of providing contraceptives and other services to women who want them, but also the rights of Little Sisters are protected as well.
Yeah. Sister, what do you when you look back on this whole thing, what do you think about it? Why do you think the government came after you? Why did the administration want to level $7 million in fines against the Little Sisters of the Poor? Wouldn't it have been easier for them and better PR to just leave you alone?
Well, I can't really speak to about their intentions, but I think there's a definite agenda in our country with the dominant culture, in this area, and I don't think they came after us individually or specifically, but we're just glad that the Supreme Court has acknowledged, what we've been saying all along, that these services could be provided so the government can meet their goals without involving us in them in ways that violate our Catholic faith.
Kristina, what do you think? What was the motivation? Why go after the Little Sisters of the Poor? Why not just leave them alone?
Well, this conflict never made any sense, and what the Supreme Court did is it laid a path for a win-win scenario. The Supreme Court knows that 1 in 3 Americans are not subject to this mandate, that the government had exempted its own military health care plans, its own Medicare plans. All in all, 100 million Americans are exempted from this mandate, so the Supreme Court understood this doesn't make any sense. Let's send the government to work it out and have everyone win.
So, Kristina, let me stay with you for a moment. When you look at the election coming up and you hear the discussion, or lack of discussion, some might say, about religious liberty, how do you feel about the future for these cases and for your cause, which I know you feel is so important in this country?
Well, the Supreme Court has gotten it right for the last 5 Supreme Court cases, right? They understand that religious liberty is not the eccentric uncle of the human rights family. And I have great faith in the American people and in our justice system, and I think that religious liberty will ultimately prevail because it's a core American value.
Sister, you think prayer played a role in all this?
Oh, definitely. And, you know, as Kristina said, she places her faith in the American people. I would add that we first and foremost have been placing our faith in God, and we've just been very confident that He would work this out, that He wouldn't abandon us, because we're taking care of His poor, and we're taking care of a group, the elderly poor, who are particularly vulnerable in today's society. So there was no way that God was not going to take care of us.
Thank you. Nobody could put it better than that. And I urge people to check out the Little Sisters of the Poor online if you want to learn more about what they're doing. And if you're scratching your head wondering why the government will come after them for $7 million, given the fact that they're taking care of poor, old people. Thank you very much to you both.
Thank you.
Always good to have you with us. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.